Hello and good evening. It is 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom on Monday, the 1st of June. How can it be the 1st of June already? Where is this year going? My name is Theo Van Dort. I'm the executive producer of Time of the Sixth Sun. In the window below is Nikki Luna Williams, who is the incredible creator of this project, the writer, the director, the producer. And our guest this evening is Mr. Leo Rutherford, who is joining us from actually only about half an hour down the road in the United Kingdom. So lovely to have you with us, Leo. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, beautiful.
You say where is this year going? I think it's going to pot. That's where it's going.
Well, in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I think depends which perspective you have on it.
Oh, all perspectives.
All perspectives, absolutely, absolutely.
So yesterday, just while we're waiting for people to come in, I went on my first drive, had to fill up with fuel, and I went and sat with Leo in his garden, 2 meters apart. Lovely. In the sunshine, swapping stories, drinking a cup of tea and gluten-free lemon cake.
Oh, how very British.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've sat in his garden.
Oh,
and
how nice.
your house burnt down. So I visited you in the old house, and this is the new one built. Yeah. And, that must have been quite a trauma.
Very nicely rebuilt.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And all thanks to Halifax Insurance, who were 100%.
Wow. Well done.
How did that happen, Leo?
Some mystery.
Yeah.
It's a real mystery, but something electrical happened. And it took off. We rang the fire brigade. The fire brigade came, but we couldn't get them to go in the pipe and in the house and douse right away.
Right.
They were hesitating. We found out the next day they weren't. They were a reserve crew, sort of amateur crew. And anyway, one thing or another, the fire got up the chimney and into the rafters, and of course, the insulation and all that's in the rafters, plus the wind. And it became uncontrollable.
Oh my goodness!
It was a real a series of things, a series of things that happened, and any one of those not happening, and we would have basically had one room or half a room would have been a disaster. But instead, it got out of control and took the house.
My goodness! When did that happen?
Friday the 13th of March, 2015.
Okay. So you've had 5 years to rebuild.
Yes.
And I love the fact that you've called your house Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix Lodge,
rising from the ashes.
Yeah. Corny, but well.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, for a change, do you want to take this away?
Yeah, sure, I will. But I'd just like to say before we start, because let's just talk about how we can support Leo. So Leo has an amazing website that we're going to talk about this evening called eagleswing.co.uk. There's a full biography and whole host of information on that on Leo's website there. And if you prefer to use Facebook, then you're able to go. Just the easiest thing to do is search for the Eagles Wing Centre on Facebook, and it's the Eagles Wing Centre for Contemporary Shamanism. And if you're enjoying these live broadcasts and you'd like to help support us, you can still rent the movie for $4.95 only. You get a 108-minute movie there that Luna spent over 11 years making, editing, visiting 16 different countries. It's a phenomenal film, which we get beautiful, beautiful feedback about. If you've not seen it yet, then please do go to timeofthesixthsunmovie.com. We've also got the complete series that you can see on the right-hand side of that screen there. So you're getting just the access to the movie and 8 episodes of the docu-series, of which Leo features in 4 of those. You get music CDs, you get an online ebook, you get the transcripts, MP3 files, a huge amount of value there. And it's usually $97, and we're just doing that at $67 for the moment, while all these troubles are happening in the world to help people. And if you just have maybe got that, or you think, hey, you know what, I'd just love to help, donate towards these weekly broadcasts, bi-weekly broadcasts, then there's a donate button on the website as well. And if you can't do any of those, then please just keep sharing these videos with others, because that really helps us too. So we would love your support. And every week, we're just so grateful for everybody that does support us, and to our guests for joining us. So thank you so much, Leo, for being with us tonight. So You opened the Eagle's Wing in 1987 as a personal development and practitioner training center for contemporary shamanism. So you've been doing this a long time. So is it neo-shamanism? Is it a combination of modern science and indigenous law?
Yeah.
And how is it used in a modern context in this world?
Okay, well, I came into this from engineering, because when I was young, I wanted to know how things worked. And I came from a family of lawyers, but I couldn't see myself in that. But I went into engineering, and I ran a manufacturing company for 12 years, or in a way, I ran it for 10 years, and then it ran me for the last 2. And I became a stress case and overweight and all the usual things, because I was like a head walking around carried by this other piece of me, the body, which didn't get too much attention, say the least of it. And I had a midlife crisis. In the midlife crisis, I went into therapy of different kinds. A chance happening with a girlfriend, met in England, who was from San Francisco, landed me in San Francisco. And while there, that was 77, a decade before you're talking about, I realized that was a place where an enormous amount of new thinking, new consciousness, new awakening was happening. It was really good time over there. And I went back to do some heavy duty therapy, the Fisher-Hoffman process, as it was then called. Of course, it's here in this country now as an 8-day process, Hoffman process. But in those days, it was 3 months, part-time. But it occupied plenty of time. But it was 3 months of heavy-duty work through of the early part of one's life, up to about 12 years. And from that, then I decided to stay in San Francisco as far as I could, and which resulted me in ultimately becoming a student, getting a student visa, and being able to stay properly. So I did loads of dance work with Gabrielle Roth, which was a tremendous liberation. I did her first ever training back in 1982. I did an MA in holistic psychology at Antioch University, which was created by Will Schutz out of the work at Esalen, pioneering work, which was a most unusual MA degree in that it was very much about, we were our own laboratory. It wasn't about learning other people's theories, it was about learning about ourselves. It was a very unique program. And through that, I came across one of the programs was with Joan Halifax about shamanism. And what came to me was that the ancient wisdoms held maps that are much greater than the Western ones. And so from then on, I've mixed everything together. All the work I did in therapy and the maps of shamanism, which makes so much more sense because they combine emotional work, mental work, inspirational mental work, and so on, the physical and the spiritual. And of course, Western, it's all split up.
Yeah.
So that's a short answer. Might be quite long, but it's a short answer.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how similar your path was to Caroline Carey and Yakov Stalin Khan. All of you have that dance in your blood. So how was that? Because you were instrumental in bringing Gabrielle Roth to this country from the US. And so how was that? You trained with her for what, 5 years or something?
Over the course of 4 years while I was over there, yes. And because I grew up in the time, you know, I'm pre-war. I grew up in the time of the foxtrot, the quick step, and the waltz, and rigid bodies, and so on. And along came rock and roll. I was far too shy to dance and let my, you know, people might look at me and, you know, all that very British stuff. And I knew I had done some liberation of myself physically, but I knew I needed to do a whole heap more. So that was just the right thing, and I hit on just the right teacher. She was brilliant.
Yeah, you sweated your prayers with
I
Gabrielle.
sweated my prayers before I knew what I was doing. I did what she told me, and she led me down a really good road. And of course, it's been part of my work ever since I started. Because I started actually in 1983 doing a mixture of stuff, which I called Play World, which included dance, it included 5 rhythms, it included theatre improv, new games or non-competitive games, all sorts of ways of bringing out the magical child. And it was that I started in 83, and by 87, I put little bits of, I put a few shamanism workshops in very tentatively into the program and so on, and they started going better than the play work. And then in the beginning of 87, I put 2 little lions into a program. The idea of a year-long course in shamanism, and I was hoping to get, maybe 8 or 10 people. And we could see what we could do over a year. But the universe had other ideas. 2 months later, I had a list of 60 people.
Wow.
So that autumn, I suddenly found myself fully employed with 3 groups, 3 year-long groups, two in London area, 1 in Devon, doing shamanism and thinking, and I can't tell you how unworthy I felt, and how, my God, thank God I've got 3 chances to get it right.
And to get 60 customers at the back end of the 80s without the incredible tools we have at our fingertips now is a fantastic achievement.
I just hit the zeitgeist somehow without knowing. It was astonishing.
Yeah. Yeah, and is that where your sort of interest in trance dance and ecstatic dance, was that based on your experiences with Gabrielle and all the other work you were doing?
Well, with Gabrielle, and then I went to a European Association of Humanistic Psychology conference, and that would be 86 or 87 in Guildford, of all exotic places.
Yeah.
And some people who had developed a work based on candomblé, Afro-Brazilian traditions, trance dance traditions, were there, and they were teaching that. And so I got a whole introduction to that work, which I combined, of course, with Gabrielle work, and just added it together. But things happened to me doing trance dance.
Yeah.
And yes, I thought, no, that's definitely something I want to develop. And so I gradually developed it and so on to a way that works really well.
And what's the difference for somebody that doesn't know the difference between ecstatic and trance dance?
Well, in a way, it's 2 words for the same thing. But the trance dance that I work with is very specifically blindfold. That's probably the difference. Blindfolded, somebody being your support so you don't crash.
Mm.
So that you can take yourself fully inside and you can move and so on. I work with djembe drummer, West African style. So it's all West African based shamanism. This with djembe drums, djembe and various other instruments, so a good soundscape which takes you and moves you into a trance state and holds you there while you can let go, and you devoid of the visual. You know that you're safe because you're supported.
Yeah.
And people can really let go.
And then you're not concerned about what you look like, as you were saying earlier, when you have that moment of, I don't really feel very comfortable with this because everybody's looking. But if you're blindfolded, it makes no difference.
Yeah. I would think it takes ecstatic dance another step. But it's, it's the same as but different.
Yeah,
it's amazing to watch the Ganawas in. Is it Morocco?
I've been there and done that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, at a conference I went to back in 1992, they took us to an all-night ceremony with the Ganawas. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Which again, it's the same West African route, because it all comes from slavery of all things.
Yeah.
The West African slaves were brought to Morocco, and they became the Ganawas, mixed their tradition with Sufi. Slaves were taken to Brazil, and they became the Candomblé, the Umbanda, and so on. They kept their traditions, and of course, when they were in Christian places, they would take the Christian god, take the name of the Christian god to their understanding of things, and so they disguised what they were doing. So the Christian said, "Oh yes, they're worshiping God."
So this, we were saying in the flyer before you came on that your work is very much connecting the inner world and our outer worlds.
Yes.
Perfect timing for that inner reflection in this time of sacred seclusion, Leo. I know that losing my mum not long ago really has forced me to do a lot of deep letting go and clearing of my ancestral patterns. So I don't need to any longer carry my mother's baggage. And, I was thinking about it today and thinking, you play along with certain members in your family in order to keep the peace and to make them comfortable, to make my mum feel in her comfort zone, but actually compromising something within yourself. And I think as children, we do that a lot for our parents, don't we?
We do.
Especially my mum. She was a German refugee. So, there's a big gaping wound there.
Mm.
So, no question on that really, except about your inner and outer work.
Definitely, we're using outer forms to get to the inside. And I don't. How can I put it? I work under the banner of shamanism, but I don't care where on earth a method comes from. I'm only interested in its transformative ability, because the whole thing is working for the people who are there to help them transform their lives. So I'm doing mixed medicine. Zero dogma, mixed medicine. Beautiful. And with one very clear purpose only, which is to help and support the people who come.
So, Leo, do you use things like shamanic journeying and sweat lodging, soul retrieval in your work with your students?
Definitely. Shamanic journeying, I look on that as a partner to trance dance, because they're both trying to go to the same place, to contact with the wider spirit world, and to contact those parts of ourselves that we don't get to in other ways, the deeper parts of ourselves. And so shamanic journeying works really well. For some people, trance dance works better. For some people, journeying works better. So it's two ways of accessing the deep inner. Sweat lodge, I've done. The first sweat lodge I attended was 1980 in California, and the first sweat lodge I ever dared to run, feeling thoroughly incompetent, was in 1985 in England at Monkton Wild. A friend and I had both studied a bit of shamanism in America, and we figured between us we had just about enough knowledge to build a sweat lodge and run it. And of course, doing so, we learned a great deal. I mean, we did tell everybody. We didn't try to, we had a small group, and we told everybody, and so on and so forth. But we managed to have exploding stones. We got the most beautiful stones from Chalmers Beach without realizing that they wouldn't work in a fire. So we ended up running around the venue, finding bricks and some excellent of the the night storage bricks, those kind of things. We found quite enough, and we ended up doing the sweat lodge okay.
You did. So for just
and of course I set about to get some proper training in it after that. It's a bit backwards, isn't it? You start with doing it and then get trained.
Yeah.
But it all worked out really well. But I only did it because, of course, in England, there wasn't anybody doing sweat lodges in those times. There were a few people around Gloucester area and so on, the Prana group, but I wasn't in contact with them.
I'm just thinking there might be, we've got over 170 people watching at the moment who may not know what a sweat lodge is. Would you just explain a little?
Okay, think of a sauna or a steam room and go back a million years. A sweat lodge, you build it like an upside down saucer shape using saplings and so on. Cover it with, in these days, blankets, tarpaulins, whatever you've got. In the center, you dig a pit, and outside you cook some rocks, volcanic rocks preferably, which are not all that easy to get over here. Volcanic rocks in a fire, and then it's a ceremony which is both with heat, but it's a prayer ceremony, and there's 4 parts to it. So outside, smudging, preparation, getting into the right space, come into the sweat lodge, door closed, dark. The sweat lodge leader pours water on the rocks to liberate the heat. And the first round is usually prayers for yourself, prayers of thanksgiving, prayers for yourself. And then there's a break, the doors opened, drinking water passed round, more stones brought in. And the second part is prayers for anything and everything other than yourself. So it's like fill your own cup, then you can give. Third round is prayers to release whatever you're walking with that no longer suits, works for you, no longer supports you, to release something in your life, and also then to bring in something to fill that gap. The fourth part has no given form. It's listening to spirit. 3 rounds of us communicating to spirit. The last round, us listening. So it might be chanting, it might be silence, it might be a drum journey, something like that. And at the end, we come out pink, dirty. Anything you take in a sweat lodge is only fit for the wash. And if there's water around, it's really good to dunk yourself in the water.
Yeah.
And it's usually, a sweat lodge is usually about an hour and a half, sometimes a bit longer, sometimes a bit shorter. But it's a quite wonderful ceremony, and it's far more than a sweat house or a sauna. It's far more, because it's everything is in a sweat lodge. Everything else isn't there. There is no technology. There is no clothing. There's no boundaries. I mean, I say no clothing, just simple whatever you like, sweatshirts or something. But it's just oneself, the earth, the fire, the elements, and spirit. So it's very beautiful.
It's like going into the mother's womb. It's very purifying, isn't it? Very cleansing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And intense. It's also a beautiful way to get yourself in that place of focus, because there are times, like in any shamanic growth, that you go, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
and then that feeling of, you know, that you've succeeded in something when you make it through the different rounds and you get to the end and you've got that beautiful feeling of celebration. And as Luna says, and as Adam Yellowbird in the film says, it is that rebirthing. It's as close as you can do to going back close to Mother Earth and then coming back out ready to take on the world with a new set of armor almost.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And you also use remote viewing. Could you tell us a little bit about the art of remote viewing?
Yeah, I did a training with an ex-CIA remote viewer back in 1997, David Morehouse, and it's a basic human ability. I remember that Grandfather Wallace Black Elk of the Lakota, he came over in 1989, and a friend of mine brought him over and asked me to host him. So I hosted him at home and so on, looked after him for the 2 weeks he was here. And he said that before he came over, he didn't call it remote viewing, but he said that his people back over in Denver had looked into his trip before he came and saw that it was safe for him to come. In other words, they remote viewed it.
Yeah.
So, you know, to the ancients, it was just a natural thing to do. But to us, it's something new. And of course, the Russians in particular, and then the Americans used it in the Cold War to see into what the other were doing. But of course, it's useful for a great deal more positive purposes than that. And in a way, you know, whenever we try to feel into the future, we're doing a form of remote viewing. But to what they taught, what David taught us was a regularized method, which is one method. That is to well, he at one time, I'll give you an example. He took a photograph and he'd given it a map reading number, 8-figure number. That they do that, give things an 8-figure number. He read out the number to us. We were sitting at desks, pencil in hand. And the first thing is to allow your hand to draw an ideogram, a shape. He sent the picture to us, and I ended up drawing a shape like that. And then the questions to feel into are: is it man-made or natural? Is it land or is it sea, or land-sea interface? And very, very basic questions like that. And then you build up bit by bit. I ended up feeling that what I was seeing was the prow of a ship coming towards me. And I built up this analytical overlay, which of course is not a good idea, and they teach don't do that. Because what it was he was sending was a pyramid, a picture of an Egyptian pyramid.
Right.
I got the shape, but I completely messed up on everything else. Now, that's the CIA method. The second method is shamanic journeying. And I reckon that's what the ancients did. The CIA didn't teach that method, but I reckon that's what Grandfather Wallace and his people would do. They would do a shamanic journey. So it's and also actually from the shamanic journey rhetoric as taught by Michael Harner, a boat journey where we all sit in the shape of a boat. The drum is the engine and that's at the back, and we sail into the future, which is another method of the same thing. And then compare the answer. I had a group one time back in the 90s, I think, at Gaunt's house. For 2 hours, I put out to do this, and to my astonishment and to a certain amount of horror, 110 people turned up. and I divided them into groups. I had to get a bit sort of, pushy to get this done. I divided them into groups and so on, various areas of life, and got the subject really, what we were looking for, really as clear as I possibly could. And we did the journey, and then one person from each group shared what they got from it, the majority of what they got, and we put all that up on a sheet of paper, and really interesting results. I can't tell you at this rather long time later what the results were, but there was some good seeing in it.
I find the whole subject so fascinating. Luna, when we were in Australia, we were talking to Jagamara about the way they do remote viewing.
Yeah, what did he say?
Well, he said about the going into the dream time, and so they take plant medicine, and then they basically imagine this cosmic serpent coming down, and then they travel up the cosmic serpent up to the Milky Way, and then once they're up there, then they can basically travel forward and back in time to see, And he says, I think you remember he says in the film, so you want to see what happened yesterday, you look in the past. You want to see what you're going to have for lunch tomorrow, you look in the future.
Yeah.
Running backwards and forwards. Dream runner.
And they are much better at getting the rational head out of the way.
Yeah,
we have a distinct excess of rational brain coupled with anxiety. Our world is full of anxiety.
And fear.
So, Leo, is that something that shamans traditionally would travel between the dimensions and bring back information for the good of their tribe? And so is that something like with the remote viewing training, is that something that can it be taught, or do you think as a traditional shaman it's something you're born into?
Well, I think it's a mixture of the two, because as a traditional shaman, you'll be picked out because you've got the potential ability, but then you need to learn how to apply that, and so on. And I think certainly along the way, some people have got these abilities which can be developed, and some people just haven't. And most of us are in between the two. We've got some, but it's psychic abilities, ability to quieten your own self down and go somewhere else.
So talking about dreaming, you describe about bringing dreams from the spirit world into matter. And the Aborigines obviously are strong dreamers and live according to the law of dreaming. So I find it fascinating how many derogative terms there are in our society for that. I mean, I think it's the most really, really important thing to be able to dream, almost like daydream as opposed to go off in your dreams. So the derogative terms are fanaticists, escapists, you might be called a romanticist, sentimentalist, daydreamers, space cadets, or just a basic hippie. It's like, I don't know where that negative aspect comes from.
Okay, it's our history. It's good to remember that the religion that is in the immediate past of our history, Christianity, that was basically the Christianity we know was created in AD 325 at the Council of Nicaea by many different opinions, many different sections, and so on and so forth. It was put together under the auspices of the Emperor Constantine as a method, as something to be agreed on that then everybody would have to believe, or else. So it was then imposed, and of course it spread and so on. And it's the ancient tale of the savior who dies, the scapegoat, and so on, put into religious terms. But interesting thing, AD 553, the idea of reincarnation and many lives was taken from church teaching. I generally blamed Emperor Justinian, but I understand now from other sources that no, it was the church itself, a faction in the church, hardline faction, demanded that that teaching was removed. And of course the emperor followed, and it became then mandatory that nobody had any past lives or future lives, just the one. Well, of course, that's a terrific weapon for control. If we only have one life and we're going to go to heaven or hell, oh, we've only got one chance. But it's so many things that have come down to us through our own culture are manifestly absurd. And that's one of them.
Yeah.
And it represents enormous soul loss, because with that, then we are solo, we're alone, we're born this one time in this one family, in this one country. We've got just one life, and we're all separate. We're not connected. God is this chap who's separate. Very important. The Christian God is separate, not part of. On the other side of things is this devil chap, who does all the bad things, and the God chap does all the good things, and the God chap has one son and no wife and no daughters, nothing feminine, thank you. And we've all got to try and live up to, if we're a man, we've got to try and live up to Jesus. If we're a woman, we've got no chance anyway, because Mary Magdalene, after all, was a prostitute, so they say, and so on and so forth. The whole story gives us no chance. And from that, then we become separated from nature with the industrial revolution. We become separated from nature. We're separated from spirit. We're separated from nature. We're separated from each other because we're taught to be competitive with each other. It's a competitive society. Darwin, who was wrong and said so on his deathbed. Pasteur, pasteurizing and germ theory was wrong. Anybody want to know about germ theory? Have a read of this book if you can see it.
Hold it up to the camera clearer.
In the middle.
Down a bit. There.
Yeah.
Goodbye, germ theory.
Goodbye, germ theory. Dr. William Trebbing. Available on Amazon. That's where I got it. But so, germ theory, which Pasteur said he was wrong on his deathbed once again, and germ theory is the germs are out there and we've got to fight them and kill them. Hence, allopathic medicine, attack medicine. Pierre Béchamp was around at the same time, late 1800s, and his theories were that germs are everywhere, which of course makes absolute sense. And they're in the body. It's when the body is weakened and the immune system is weakened that we get attacked. Now, here's an interesting thing. The Great Plague, the Great Bubonic Plague in the 14th century or 13th to 14th century.
Yeah.
Before that, apparently, the Catholic Church had encouraged mothers to stop cuddling their babies, to not be close to their babies in day and night, and so on. And so the obedient Catholic women didn't cuddle their babies. So a whole generation grew up with tremendous loss, tremendous soul loss, separation, deprivation. So a century later, or less, came the plague and tremendous sickness, i.e., because of the weakening through ridiculous beliefs. So that opens the door to that. So we can ask about COVID. What has opened the door to COVID? What within us has got weakened? Well, I'd like to offer a couple of things. The late 60s, early 70s, many studies have shown that the greatest sharing of the wealth was around then. And I remember coming into the human potential movement movement of great hope around that time and thinking, something good is starting. But it didn't go on. From the 80s to now, the richer got richer and the poorer got poorer. And of course, particularly in the last 20 years, since the central bank started creating funny money, which puts everything uneven and so on, the richer got a whole heap richer and the poorer got a whole heap poorer. And the middle class is getting really seriously attacked. Well, something had to happen. Something had to break, because the whole underpinnings of society were not right. So now we have COVID. It's a thought.
The great COVID. So, what was I going to ask you? I just actually, my mind wanted to just go back to dreaming just for a moment, and then we'll come to what's happening now. But I wanted to ask you about the importance. What do you think the importance is of dreaming, being a dreamer in these times? So being a visionary, a pioneer who's here to create new systems, to create this new world.
Yeah, definitely. So important, because what is clear in this lockdown house arrest time, nature is loving it. The animals are loving it. The plants are loving it. The sky is clearer than ever, because our pollution and our busyness is not there.
Yeah.
We're not going to come back to normal. Not that normal was anything like normal, but we're not going to come back to what we had. That's not going to be possible. Yes. We need to dream a new society. Yeah. We need to dream a society with heart, if it's humanly possible, with heart-based, instead cooperation-based, instead of competition-based, in working together, in sharing, rather than grabbing everything for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Visionaries are needed, and there are some out there.
And you think back through time over history, and there were many visionaries in our time, and that really was their job to bring in these new systems.
We certainly need it now, because out there is the usual forces which want to produce a totalitarian state, vaxxed, chipped, surveyed, tracked.
So let's talk about what's going on right now.
Enough of that. We know that's out there, and we don't want it.
Let's talk about it. So what is going on in the world? I mean, the polarities seem so extreme now. What's that about, from your perspective?
The Hopi prophecy, I know you've been there, Nikki.
Yeah.
The Hopi prophecy carved graphically a third mesa on the Hopi lands. It shows two lines of humanity gradually getting further apart. And there's various vertical lines showing the times where opportunities to change. And the Hopi prophecy says that eventually those two lines, the one-hearted and the two-hearted, meaning the one-hearted who's same on the inside as outside, and the two-hearted who have one heart to show outside and one heart for themselves. The two are going to go so far apart that it's not going to be possible to shift from one to the other.
Yeah. And it's interesting on that top line.
Happening.
Yeah. On that top line on Prophecy Rock, you see it's kind of like the blind leading the blind, the politicians with their flags and stuff. But on the bottom line, it's just a simple farmer with his ear of corn. Who's the one who goes on. The other road becomes like that, very chaotic. Yeah.
And we can see it happening now, and the power forces, power money, big money forces, those who would oppress, in full panic mode, really, and those of us who are awakening, at least to some extent, are growing more and more, and the split between the two is just getting wider.
It's vast.
wider and wider. And we haven't seen the end of this lockdown. I mean, it's not the lockdown itself. I mean, the economic devastation and so on that's happened and will continue. There will be times where activity, shamanic activism, is needed.
So explain a bit more about that.
I'm a bit loath to, because I don't know what it'll be, but we are going to need to stand up for ourselves and not be overrun by those who would control.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely something for us to discuss. And certainly when we're talking about, groups of elders coming together, that needs to be, need to find new ways. So I was wondering if, by looking back historically, whether we can find solutions for the future at all.
Looking back historically.
We were talking before about, the whole thing about the church and everything and how we've come to be in this place. And so, are we looking for totally new solutions? I probably think we are, actually. I don't know. People say that history repeats itself and there are cycles, but in this instance, I don't know, actually. I'm really not.
History doesn't exactly repeat itself, but it rhymes, as the saying goes. If we just look for a moment at the forces of totalitarianism, one empire after another. What's an empire? An empire is a relatively few people dominating a large number.
Yeah.
And that is human history. And when it isn't an empire, it's a religion, telling people what to think, what to believe, and so on. I mean, belief in English gives itself away, because it says be in the lie, and then there's an F left over at the end. Be in the lie that we're telling you, and you'll get something beginning with F, which doesn't need to be expressed. And so, we had Christianity, which wanted to dominate the world and dominated an awful lot of it. Then Christianity split into two factions, the Catholics and the Protestants, and of course they fought each other. And along the way, Islam developed, and now Islam wants to take over and conquer the world, or some of them do anyway, and the whole world Islamic. Well, that's telling people what to think, how to be. That's totalitarianism. The other side of that one is Lenin and his group went to Moscow at the time where Russia was falling apart, and the Tsar, Russia was ready to get rid of the Tsar and so on. And they got rid of the Tsar, and then they produced communism, which was even worse. And 60 years of communism ruined the Soviet Union in so many ways. And of course, in all those things, the shamans get persecuted. The shamans in Siberia were persecuted by the communists. The shamans in England were persecuted by the Christians, because that was the witches. Witch, wise woman. Witch and wizard, wise woman, wise man. So they were killed off over witch persecution 600 to 800 years by the church, which espouses love, poverty. It's one of the wealthiest organizations in the world, but it's supposed to be teaching about poverty, love, care, and so on. It's a world domination cult, actually. I would label the Roman Catholic Church a world domination cult, and Islam another world domination cult. All the totalitarians are either country domination cults or world domination cults.
So how do we get back towards unity then? Susan's asking that question here, which is a great question. So how do you see us growing towards unity?
Well, somehow, if we can grow into heart space, everything will really change. In other words, if we actually start caring for each other rather than knocking the hell out of each other, I mean, the history of the world is like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Which, after all, is based on portions of history. Somehow our human journey to go from this dysfunctional culture to a functional worldwide culture is going to depend on replacing our antagonism for each other, for other groups and so on, with hearts, a willingness to go into the heart space and to share the wealth of the world rather than compete for it, to cooperate rather than more for me.
Yep, absolutely. We rather than me.
Yeah. Now, I know I'm saying that, but how the heck we get from there, from here, I don't know. The only thing I can say is everything starts at home. And where is home? It's with oneself.
Yeah.
We start with oneself, and then two, and then a family, many families, a village. The ancients say it takes a village to raise a child, because a child needs multi-parenting, multi-help. Communities, to create communities and build up communities that are functional through healing the problems that individuals have, healing each other, helping to heal and come to that heart space. Absolutely. That would be a great possibility.
Yeah.
So, Leo, we called this talk Coming Back to Our Inner Consciousness.
Yeah.
What sort of things can you share with the people watching right now that allow them to come back inside, to stop looking externally and, as you said, to come back into home is where the heart is, and actually that is our home, and that's one of the first places we can start. But when you share your shamanic wisdom and you're teaching courses, what are some of the tools that people can use to actually really get back in touch with their inner self?
Good question.
To spend a bit of time in quiet, spend a bit of time quiet every day. If possible, find a sit spot in nature, somewhere to go in nature regularly and just to sit and be with nature. Because nature, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom was here before us humans. And if we mess up, it'll be here after us humans. And nature knows how to live on this planet. That's proved by longevity.
Yeah.
And to get in touch with the nature of this world and to let it speak to the self.
I think there's also the element.
That's one simple way. Sorry, Nikki.
No, sorry, I interrupted. There's also the element of self-love, of actually falling in love with ourselves, because until we can do that, it is difficult to truly, clearly love another person. So self-love is such an important part of that heart issue.
Yeah, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Yeah.
From the Bible, but somehow we got taught not to love ourselves, and all like it was a really bad idea. It's ridiculous. You can't love anything until you love and care for yourself, because
very much.
We are with ourselves for our whole life.
Sure.
And self-hate is a disease.
It is.
It's literally a disease. We are disenfranchised from ourselves. Native American folks have an expression, wetiko, which is, it's literally it literally translates as cannibalism, but it doesn't mean literal cannibalism. It means when you use another's life, like in a sense slavery. You eat the lives of the slaves, or you eat, the rich eat the lives of the poor and consume those lives for themselves. And it comes from our disenfranchisement from each other, from nature, from spirit. If we were in touch particularly with spirit, we wouldn't do those things to each other. We'd respect each other. But our whole culture is built on competition and getting more for the self. And we need to somehow change that to actually sharing. I think it's very difficult to do on a big scale, but with small communities based on the heart, it could happen and could work well. And small communities growing own food, really working with nature, letting nature be the teacher, and and practicing the sharing, the looking after each other, and so on. And then we'll start allow the culture that exists to die, because it is killing itself. America, and particularly, it feels like the beginning of the end of the American empire. And America is on a suicide mission at the moment, in a sense. And to build, we can't change the culture we've got, but we can build a new culture to replace it as it dies. That's all I can. That's the best I can come up with at the moment. I think it's an enormous problem.
Yeah, many problems to solve.
I've got a question here from Maz, but I think you pretty much just answered, Leo. He says we need to value each other as much as we value ourselves, an open, welcoming heart. How do you see us coming back to our inner consciousness on a global level, Leo?
On the internet. The internet.
Yes, the internet is one thing for sure. Slowly and gradually helping each other one by one in groups, in communities. To help each other to come back to the heart space.
Yeah.
And as Shelley says here, she asked how do we heal the hate, but actually then afterwards, Siakezu says starting with gratitude. I guess that's really promoted in the movie, isn't it? It all comes down to gratitude.
Gratitude.
You can start the morning with being thankful for things, and you can go to bed at night. The last thing you think about is the things you're grateful for. You know, with the way we have this ability to dream ourselves awake, with the way we have the ability to manifest, you know, you call on, you bring in more of what you think about. So the more grateful you are, you know, the more these beautiful things can then be brought to you by spirit.
Yeah. And we live in a mirror kind of universe. We draw to us by our thoughts, which of course is our dreaming. If we want to look at ourselves as a dreamer, then what have we brought to us up to now? Because that's the result of our dreaming. If we brought confusion, then we're dreaming that. If we, whatever we got, that's what we dreamt into being. If we want to change it, then we want to consciously dream something new.
Dream big. It's true.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions about the indigenous peoples of the world, and it's something I wanted to clear up. So how would you respond to often the native people's indignation at Westerners using their rituals and ceremonies for our own developmental work? You know, when I think of that expression, Leo, Madakwe Oasin, to all our ancestors, I think of our collective ancestry as your ancestors are my ancestors. I'm you, you're me, we're one. And so, but there still seems to be a strong resistance, especially within maybe Aboriginal culture, the older, the elders, but also Native American culture. But you don't find that, say, in Japanese or, in Buddhism or in Tibet or India, for example.
Well, it's very, very understandable. White people have treated Aborigines, Native Americans, and so on abominably, quite absolutely abominably. So, it's totally reasonable. However, we are so disenfranchised from ourselves. Our teachings have been completely screwed up.
Yeah.
I would look for Celtic wisdom, but I didn't ever find it. I happened to come across Native American wisdom. Now, it's the same at root,
yeah,
even though it's from a different land. And I just consider myself very lucky indeed to have come across ancient wisdom and to have been taught a certain amount of it, and to be able to heal myself with it and to help other people with it. And it's a great gift. It's been a great gift.
yeah.
And if I can't use it, and we as a whole can't borrow wisdom from elsewhere, where are we going to find our own? We don't have it. We've been taught
exactly.
to, we've been taught to believe instead of know.
Yeah.
Instead of, and so on.
Yeah.
Psychotherapy was invented, so people say, by Freud. Psychotherapy started with Freud. Well, ridiculous. People who used to do psychotherapy were the priests. That was part of the priest's job. But Christian priests were taught to teach belief.
Yeah.
Ignorance. Stay in ignorance. Just believe. Don't try to find out. Don't try to work with yourself. Don't try to find out what's what. Just believe. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, how many centuries backwards has that taken us? They've obliterated those forces which wanted us just to be believers, have obliterated our own wisdom. So we travel the world to find wisdom.
And I wonder how much.
Thank you to the native people. I know, but how else am I going to ever heal myself?
Yeah. And I wonder how much of it, certainly for the Native American people and the Aboriginal people, how much of it comes from the barbaric episodes from our forefathers. Absolutely. And that deep wounding. I'm sure that's probably where that is rooted.
Absolutely. And I empathize completely.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want to be a barbaric white Westerner anymore. I want to, and I spent 40 more than half my life re-educating myself from the ridiculous 10 years of boarding school education that I had, and the ridiculous acculturation into this society. I've been, 45 years doing my best to heal myself. And I need another lifetime or 2 or 3 to complete the
job. That's why we have to expand time, isn't it?
Yeah. We've got some questions coming in now. This is from Caroline. I don't think it's all going to fit on screen, but it's a great question. So
why don't you read it?
I'll read the rest of it. It says, "Hi Leo, during your interview," Luna, you've disappeared, sorry, but during your interview on the time of the sixth sun, you mentioned how we are so overstimulated and mentioned how the music is played too loud. Don't you find the music that came in after the 80s is much worse than just the volume? Isn't this beat destructive to the very structure of matter? I don't mean indigenous beats with drums. I mean the beat that is in this very modern music. It scrambles the brainwaves, attacks the heart, and I feel it is aimed at the structure of, and it finishes with the DNA.
Caroline, the mechanical music. Mechanical music is played by machines, not by people. Hey, I agree.
Yeah, I agree too.
I agree. I won't work with that stuff. And I don't want to hear it. And I have been to the odd rave, but that was for,
that was to do drugs, wasn't it, Leo?
No, no, the drugs I've done have all been in ceremony, and they've been like peyote, ayahuasca,
plant medicine,
iboga, things like that. plant medicines, because plant medicines aren't drugs, they're medicines, healing medicines. No, the only drugs I've ever done might come out of a doctor's prescription.
Yes, exactly. I say to my mum, you're the biggest drug addict I know.
But no, I went to a rave in the days of megalithomania. No, Megatripolis. That's it. In London, if anybody remembers that was quite a time ago. And one time I took the drum band along, and we did drumming and so on and so forth. And we started off an evening, and it was really nice. And then, of course, in came the mechanical music. And what really amazes me and horrifies me with raves is that on the one hand they serve alcohol, which is it's like an inhibitor of an enlightenment inhibitor.
Yeah.
And people are taking ecstasy and things like that. Ew. I mean, how ridiculous to mix the two completely opposite substances.
Yeah.
I thought the basic scene made me just want to puke.
Yeah.
So, of course, needless to say, Caroline, I really agree that music is not, it's not music. It isn't music. It's just noise.
Electronics, yeah. It's a machine. It's true.
Yeah, I used to play traditional jazz. I was once upon a time a clarinetist. That's music.
Yeah, that's music. Do you still play?
No, I've lost my lip, and I can play a little on the lower register, but I can't play around.
Get the high ones. Yeah.
Okay, let's put in another question from Marcy. She says, Leo, can you emphasize prayer and the essence of daily practice in prayer, and does prayer connect us?
Yes. Prayer really is another word for dreaming. It's the same thing. To dream what we want to bring into our lives is a prayer.
Yes.
And shamanic work is full of prayer. It's just, I suppose, we just use slightly different expressions for it. But the whole of a sweat lodge ceremony is prayer. So absolutely, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I was telling you about, I think yesterday I was telling you about when I was interviewing Yakov, we did a little exercise at the end. And I was saying to him, imagine we have a council. And on this council of wise elders are 6 men and 6 women. And who would they be? And we sort of started to build this council of who we'd have on it. And we invited the audience as well to participate. And so I was thinking to take that as sort of a step further and wondering, okay, so we have this council, what issues might we bring to the table? So I'll start that off with saying that maybe one of the things they would discuss with world governments is to bring Indian or tribal medicine and new energy medicine into our wellness programs, just as one example of something, thinking further forward, that is not too difficult to create something like that. So what might and I'd love to invite the audience as well, if you've got any ideas of what this council would address issue-wise to create a different future for us, please write in on the chat column and let us know. What do you reckon, Leo?
That's a really good thing to start with.
We're manifesting it, aren't we? Literally, as we're dreaming it and discussing any of these things now, I'd really, encourage everyone to be having conversations like this.
And a way to encourage people to get local, get close, to support local producers of food and so on, so that there's less transport needed, there's less fuels need to be burnt and so on. As far as I can see, we export apples to New Zealand and they export apples to us, that kind of thing. It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
Yeah, it's a nonsense.
And to get get much more local, so that we actually start creating a culture that's more self-sustaining locally, and not dependent on all this.
Local, not global.
Yeah.
So, what would you imagine they might bring to the table?
Do you know what Mark Hudson has just written here, and I love this? It's rites of passages for our children.
Yes.
Because I was having this conversation with a friend only last week. It was actually lovely semester. We were sitting in the garden talking about how there is no rites of passage for young people. You know, the sort of my eldest is 11, and he's sort of in that just pre-puberty stage. And there is nothing there really that that takes them from being a boy to becoming a man, and from being a young lady to becoming a lady. And it would just be so beautiful if we had those rites of passage like they have in the native tribes, where they're kept with the the maternal influences and the grandmother's influences first, but then they go off to become hunters. And
so how do you see a council addressing that?
Well, even if it was there, there's nothing. I mean, we talked to lovely Ben, busy Ben Cole, who's the director of director of photography on the movie.
Busy Ben Cole is.
Yeah, but he works with this incredible organization that for rehabilitating offenders. And the major part of that when we've had these discussions, he said, is that a lot of the time these things happen too late, because because these young men have had no rites of passage, because there isn't that. So it's putting that onto the agenda.
Well, there are a few people doing it. There's
there are
Band of Brothers.
That's what Ben's group is. Yeah,
Band of Brothers. Also close to me here, it's Sacred Earth Land, and we have there a elders and young people's group, which meets every so often, bringing teenagers, teenagers and elders together, which I'm delighted to be part of, and also some training for young people in helping them to get back to nature, back in touch with nature. It's not exactly a rite of passage, but it's certainly the preparation for an actual rite of passage. So and there are people doing this. So, but of course it's it's few and far between. It's not part of the culture.
It's how to make it more mainstream. So let's have a look at some of the beautiful things coming in. So Julia says, forgiveness and gratitude practice included in education.
Yes.
How to stop the arms industry. John says how elders ensure that children are included. Elizabeth says, how about a year of community service for everyone?
Yeah.
Very good.
Monica, less consumerism, more gifting, lending, buy from local small crafts and producers.
Yes.
Living from our hearts. Isn't that right, Leslie?
Yes.
It says rites of passage for all ages. We need this for people.
That's absolutely right too.
And then Elizabeth follows that up with a rite of passage for women after the menopause.
Yeah. Now my working colleagues offer a course called The Enchantress for women post-menopause, which is the old way is maiden, mother, crone, but maiden, mother, enchantress, crone, because woman in that stage, she's past birth and so on. She's past family, early family, and so on. And a lot of women and men, in a way, we've got so far in life, and then in the 50s, it can be a limbo kind of period.
Well, that's kind of why we have a midlife crisis, because where next?
The Enchantress is to fill that void. And I can't tell you from personal experience because I can't go.
We have to enchant you.
I hear loads of good feedback. Here's another thing. Look, another way of seeing from the medicine wheel, another way of seeing life stages. birth to 27, childhood, spiritual childhood. 27 to 30, a journey of change, because it's that goes with Saturn's return.
Yeah.
30 to 54, adolescence. How about that? That's different. 30 to 54, adolescence. 54 to 57, the second Saturn return and the second period of chaotic change. Chaos is a good thing. Chaos allows change. No real change happens without chaos. It's, you know, people fear chaos, but you can't make real change without it. It's important. And then 57 to 81, maturity, if you can get it, if we can get there. 81 to 84, the third Saturn return. And I'm on that right now. Third Saturn return, from maturity to elder. And we know there's two ways of getting old, and one is to be an old person, and the other is to be an elder. And the two are very far apart.
Yeah.
But that's 4 stages, but very different to how they're usually looked at.
Yes, I mean, in Native American cultures, they often say 52 for a woman into elderhood, because by that time you've gone through menopause, you don't have the distractions anymore, and you can be focused as an elder. But I like that, linking it into the Saturn return. It's not too different.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Nice.
What I loved is the idea of being of that long being childhood, because I look back on my life, and it really, the good things in it didn't really start till after 27.
Yeah.
And that transformation for me, 27 to 30, really, it was from being nowhere to getting on my feet.
Yeah.
Well, Leo, I'm just glad you called me an adolescent. I'm loving it.
I still want to go back and expand that thought, because these are things we're talking about, which are keeping it local and rites of passage and all things we want to see come in. But on the bigger level, the eagle eye level, these group of 12 elders, what are they going to be addressing? So it takes expanding ourselves a bit, doesn't it, to see that?
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, there's massive problems in the world, but they go back centuries to the program, how we've got programmed from so much earlier.
Yeah.
And how we, in effect, we lost ourselves.
Yeah.
In materialism and in such separation from each other. And as your wonderful film, it's time of the sixth sun. We're transiting from the fifth to the sixth sun, and the fifth sun is going out with a bang. I mean, it's going out with a century with two dirty great wars, and now a really big economic upheaval, because this is an economic upheaval. As against the pandemic. The pandemic is really quite minor, but the economic evil is very big.
So I would say that learning to educate us from a younger age about peace, the art of peace, communication, friendship, non-violent communication, understanding war and conflict, they would be important things to discuss with world governments for people to grow up learning about these things, I would say.
To really revamp the education system.
And maybe a partnering. I heard something once when we were talking about Israel, conflicts within Israel, and that if every child befriended, like an Israeli child befriended a Palestinian, within their school years, maybe within a decade, that you would build bridges. If every child partnered with someone who was, your country was in conflict with or whatever.
Yeah, that's tremendous.
A partnership.
That would be really fantastic.
Yeah. What else?
Enormous healing.
By the way, I watched the other night with my wife Jojo Rabbit, which is like a wonderful Kiwi, the New Zealand film director whose name escapes me at this moment in time, but it's Taika Waititi. But he's made some amazing films. But he basically does this parody of World War II about this, this young German boy who is hiding a Jew in the family home, and how he's being absolutely pushed by the propaganda of I have to report the fact that I'm hiding this person. But you just see this beautiful relationship blossom between the two. So what you were just talking about there, Luna, I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful
the thought that you could eradicate war in something like 10 years if it was a really global program of partnering, that would be amazing. And kids are the ideal place to start, really.
Because even kids that don't speak the same language, you see them play together, and it doesn't take long before they just go into that world and start to play.
Because they don't see difference in the same way unless they're programmed to. They play with each other, natural. Makes me think of the Truth and Reconciliation that Nelson Mandela instituted.
Amazing. Truth and Reconciliation.
Rather than continued hate.
Yes.
Exactly. And all ways like that really, really help.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, everyone's going to have
other ideas coming in.
Ideas. Go on, share some of them.
From our discussion, I'm feeling for us to come closer together, we need to come close to spirit, plus be willing to forgive those hurts from the past.
Yes.
How can we become one people if we continue to hang on to the hurts inflicted by past generations?
Yeah, but this is where, but certainly in my experience with myself, it was good therapy work. Helped me, because the child in me needed to express the hurts safely, but also physically, and energy that when we don't get energy out, it goes in and squashes. And we need where we have leftover hates, that's held in our belly area, and it's very good therapeutic to get it out.
Yes. So
not as a way of life, but as a passageway through to get it out of oneself, and then let go of it.
Yeah. So I would advocate a world forgiveness ceremony.
Yes.
On a mass level, and that means with the tribes, it means with maybe one central ceremony where different people, representatives come from different countries around the world. They then take that central ceremony back to their own countries, something of that ilk. But we need to forgive, and all of us, starting with ourselves.
Yeah, and what I would suggest with that is the lead up to that is forgiveness of oneself, and in small groups leading to bigger groups, bigger, until we get to the whole world.
Absolutely.
Compound
it needs to be something structured, because it needs to happen. And when we were filming in Australia, we were talking to Jagamara about it, and it's really, really important. Maybe starting from there.
Yeah.
Most of us need to start with forgiving our own self.
Yeah, absolutely. We got through a whole program without having to talk about that or that.
Yeah.
I love it. Well done, all of us.
Good. My Facebook feed's full of it. I'm quite glad for the break.
Any more fabulous ideas? We're going to continue this conversation because it's an important one.
There's lots of different. I'm sorry, I've got to scroll back now. There's lots of people agreeing with you about the spiritual growth.
I've got one while you're looking, is accountability, to make ecocide law. That is a really important law that needs to go through. So any company who used to, in the past, or still does, pay big fines when they've been naughty boys, now CEOs and the heads of department have to take responsibility, and it is a criminal crime to pollute our rivers and our lands and skies. I think that's a hugely important law.
Yeah. There's some beautiful ideas from Jeanette. How to build loving, sustainable communities that nurture, educate, and support, that can be accessible and affordable for everyone. Margarita says, a very welcome reality, promote union and respect through common artistic projects, inclusive ones among youth, especially in prisons. Leslie says, children learn by example. We need to show them by our actions. Pamela says, perfectly. Oh, yes, you really understand rites of passage. Let's do this. Julia talks about Matt McCartney's Children's Fire. Yes. It's the most beautiful, beautiful book.
Absolutely. And that should be bought by the elders in that council, is that everything in the world that we do, whatever it is, business or whatever, everything is with the first thought to the Children's Fire, that no children or future generations are damaged in the process.
Yeah, it's one of my top 10 books. Brilliant book.
People starting to see the need for this council of elders to sit and consult with world governments.
Yes.
I think every government, I think every political leader should go and maybe do a medicine ceremony and do some sort of really intense therapy for 2 weeks.
All of it. Quite something.
Make a difference, though, wouldn't it? I used to say they should all be hung upside down.
Well, you know, they were all ordinary people before they got into politics.
Yes.
Bless them. Turn the light on, because it's gone a bit dark over here.
We've just been talking about Mac's book, but we really need to talk about your books, because you're a prolific author. In fact, while you guys were chatting, I've just pulled this up from a website. So
that's perfect.
So you can see your books. Now we don't actively promote this website because we don't believe with lots of things they do, but unfortunately, as we were talking to Caroline Carey this week, it makes it possible for people to get their works out. It's you know, this is the I do find it ironic that it's called Amazon. I wish Jeff Bezos would actually just use all that money to save our Amazon. I think that would be a much better use.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about your books?
Can you bring the page back, please? Teo? Yeah. Because he's got them there.
I've got them somewhere. I put them somewhere convenient and handy.
Right beside you.
Here they are. Yeah. Anyway, this one, Spirituality versus Religion, is it's quite a rude tome, really, about the absurdities of religion. And I wrote it specifically for people who, like myself, as I was, who just knew that there was something not right about religion, but still felt that somehow they should still believe it. And this book really solves that, because it just shows, rather than like the whole idea of the one true church, that actually the whole thing's fake from beginning to end. It's a story that's got turned into a dogma. Anyway, it's also very, very funny. I mean, it's about the funniest book on religion you'll find anywhere, I hope. And there's a whole lot of stuff about the essence of spirituality and why the two are not at all the same.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Great. Enjoy.
Thank you. Then I'll pass it on to Teo.
Thank you.
Okay. Shamanic Path Workbook. This is what it says. It is a workbook, and it has some exercises and some questions to ask oneself, and quite challenging. Some of the processes in here are quite challenging.
So one of the questions from Jackie was, does Leo have suggestions of how to develop in shamanism? I guess the answer is read the book.
Well, the answer is keep on keeping on, keep on doing, ceremonies, processes, attend workshops on things that you want to learn, aspects that you want to learn that you can take away and use for yourself.
Yeah.
Keep your nature awareness going, and absolutely, because it's an endless journey in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, life is a journey. Shamanism is a set of tools to help the journey and to explain and lay out ways to keep on with yourself. It's self-education in a sense.
Mm.
Okay. Leo, we've come to the end of our hour and a half, in fact.
Right.
Just quickly on those. Yeah.
Okay. The medicine wheel, the view through the medicine wheel. This book is medicine wheel from beginning to end. There's nothing else in it but medicine wheel, which is a series of maps of how the universe works. This is where I started in life. Is I wanted to know how things work. Started with engineering and ended up with people and life, the whole lot. I want to know how everything works.
Right.
And these are the best maps I've ever come across by miles.
And so says the engineer.
Yeah. And so on, the view through the medicine wheel. That one is the first book I ever did, which was about play therapy, basically, fun and games therapy, and a way of getting into the heavy duty stuff with a laugh on your face.
That would have been great for people during lockdown.
Yeah.
So Leo, I've just put your website into the chat on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel. It doesn't let me put it into our Facebook group for some strange reason, so I'll have to put that there later. But if you'd like to find out more about Leo's work, you can go to eagleswing.co.uk, and Leo's also on Facebook with the Eagles Wing Centre. That's the easiest thing to search that in. Search Eagles Wing Centre, and then you'll find out about Leo's work. And if you're just joining us for the very first time, because a lot of people are sharing these live broadcasts and you're wondering, who are we? What do we do? Well, Time of the 600 is a movie that was put together over, well over 11 years by Nikki Luna, the lady who was doing this broadcast with us. She spent 16 different countries filming over, well over 100 different Indigenous elders, thought leaders, wisdom keepers, and collating all that information, turning it into a beautiful 108 cinematic movie with. It's not just interviews, it's beautiful cinematography with Estas Tone, 15 different tracks of music. So if you've not watched Time of the Sixth Sun yet, you can rent it for just $4.95. There's a deep dive digital access package that you can find out all about on our website, timeofthesixthsunmovie.com. And if you'd like to just help us with these ongoing costs, I said this last week, we have to spend $1,500 a month just to keep all the technology going behind the scenes. So every $5 donation, $10 donation really does help us towards those costs. And if you can't do any of those, just share these live videos with others, because we're super, super grateful when people do that. So
I'm going to also just start sowing a seed, which is, I gifted you one of these yesterday, Leo.
Wonderful.
But we had to stop selling these physical packages because of the lockdown and the different postal services around the world. We are going to be bringing them back. We only have a specific number of them left, but it's a fabulous double CD with SS Tone, all the music from the film, 9 movies, DVDs, a very aesthetic bamboo USB with all the transcripts on, and you're much better at this than I am too, and a A4 landscape book of all the photographs from the shoots over all the years of shooting this movie. And with these are all the wisdom quotes from the speakers in the film, from the wisdom keepers. So
very beautiful, very beautiful package.
Good.
Altogether.
Thank you. Well, we'll soon be making those available again.
Yeah, we will. Just got to rebuild the website so we can start taking those orders again. Just a little bit of extra work. Can't wait. Here we go.
Leo, so lovely to have you back with us.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be with you.
Lovely. and we'll have tea on the lawn again soon.
Do.
Fabulous.
Look forward to seeing you.
Leo, thank you. It's been absolutely the 90 minutes has just gone woof, which I always know is then we've had great interest, and I can just see from all the comments coming in, it's beautiful. So many different people, like Kaylin's just said, thank you, Leo, Luna, Teo, great talk. So many wonderful questions and ways to move forward. And there's too many names coming in, but you can go back and have a look at the comments afterwards. So with that, we will bid you good night. Scylla is asking about the t-shirts. Right. You can go, Scylla, I'll just type this right into the chat now. Time of the 6th Sun store.com. And
what do our t-shirts say, Teo?
Well, they say lots of different things. This one says "We are the dreamers," and on the back it says, I can't read it.
Will you dream tonight, and will you act on it tomorrow?
Yeah, and then the other one, where the blue one says, "You are the living hope of all of your ancestors." Yeah. I mean, children's ones, but I've just put the link in there. So it's time of the 6th Sun store.com if you'd like to pick yourself up a hoodie. They're really good quality. I mean, we've had this since November. It's been washed multiple times, and I love it when you buy clothes and they last. I hate it when you buy clothes and
they're all organic cotton. They're thick. They're really good quality. T-shirts, everything.
They are.
Yeah.
Right, let's say good night, everyone. Thank you so much, and we'll join you on Thursday at 8:15. And Luna is lining the speaker up for Thursday tomorrow morning, so we'll announce it on the Facebook page, the Facebook group, and the YouTube channel as soon as we know. So with that, we bid you a good night from the United Kingdom, all three of us, within half an hour of each other here in the UK. Wherever you are in the world, have a beautiful day or sleep well. Bye-bye.